History is written in the stone we leave behind. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands with a precision that challenges its age, a silent testament to a civilization long gone. This is the language of monumental stonework, a physical timeline of human ambition carved directly into the earth. By the end of this journey, you will gain a powerful new lens to read the entire story of civilization, from its first bold strokes to its final echoes. We will uncover how a simple change in how a culture shapes rock can signal the birth of an empire, and what abandoned 1,000-ton blocks reveal about a society's sudden collapse. We are about to decode the hidden messages in mountains of granite and fields of limestone, tracing a direct line from ancient mysteries to our modern world. What forgotten chapter of human ambition do you think is still waiting to be read in the stone around us? Standing beneath the towering sarsen stones of Stonehenge, you are not just looking at rocks, you are feeling a message. The cold, rain-smoothed surface, the impossible weight overhead, the sheer effort required just to be here, it speaks of a purpose far beyond building a simple wall. This is the essence of monumental stonework. It begins not with architecture, but with a declaration. To understand the rise of civilizations, we must first learn to read this declaration in the stone itself. So, what transforms a pile of rock into a monument? It is defined by three powerful ingredients working together. First is scale, a physical presence that deliberately dwarfs the individual person, making you feel small in its shadow. Second is permanence, a clear intention to create something meant to last for generations, even millennia, shouting into the future. And third, most crucially, is purpose. A monument's function always transcends the purely practical. It is not built for shelter or storage, but for something deeper, to honor a deity, to project a ruler's power, to unite a community in shared memory, or to mark a sacred alignment with the cosmos. As archaeologist Colin Renfrew observed, these structures represent a conspicuous consumption of energy. They are a society's way of showcasing its ultimate control over the two most fundamental resources, human labor and the very earth beneath its feet. We can break this down further by looking at the craftsmanship. Consider the sheer mass of material moved, often across incredible distances. Then, examine the degree of shaping. Are the stones simply found and placed, or have they been meticulously quarried, carved, and finished? Finally, witness the complexity of assembly. How were these colossal pieces joined? A simple stone cairn built by a traveler to mark a path is one thing. It is functional and human-scaled. But now, picture the fortress walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru. Here, individual stones weigh dozens of tons, yet they are carved with such precision that they fit together in a dizzying, interlocking puzzle, with seams so tight you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. The difference is not just technical, it is civilizational. That leap from using what you find to commanding what you want is a seismic shift. It signifies a culture moving from reacting to its environment to actively reshaping it according to a grand, shared vision. It tells us they had the social organization to plan for years, the technical knowledge to execute, and the collective belief to justify the immense cost. This foundational drive to make a permanent mark is the very first chapter in our story. Once a society masters this language of stone, what happens when that ambition is turned toward the heavens themselves? The leap from using stone to declaring with it is captured in the misty fields of ancient Europe. Long before empires, before written language, even before the wheel, communities were already speaking this powerful language. Scattered across the landscape from Britain to Turkey are the first tentative sentences of that declaration, written in colossal stone. These are the world's earliest monuments, and they force us to rewrite the story of human ambition. For generations, historians believed a settled, agricultural society was the necessary foundation for such grand projects. You needed farms to produce surplus food, they reasoned, to free people from daily survival to become builders. Then, in the 1990s, a discovery in southeastern Turkey shattered that assumption. Göbekli Tepe, a vast complex of carved stone pillars arranged in circles, was dated to over 11,000 years ago. This was not built by farmers in a thriving city, but by hunter-gatherers. The stones themselves are monumental in scale, some weighing over 15 tons, yet the technique is strikingly direct. They were quarried from nearby limestone ridges and set into sockets carved directly from the bedrock. The sophistication is not in complex joints or precise angles, but in the sheer, coordinated vision it represents. This was a communal project of staggering scale for a purpose that was clearly spiritual or social, a gathering place that predates everything we thought we knew about civilization's prerequisites. Similarly, on the windswept coast of Brittany, France, stand the Karnak stones. Thousands of granite menhirs stretch for miles in eerie, parallel rows. The exact reason for their placement remains one of archaeology's great puzzles. Were they a colossal astronomical calendar tracking the sun and moon? A territorial marker for a growing society, or a sacred pathway for rituals lost to time? The power of these sites lies in the profound question they pose to us across the millennia. What shared belief, what unifying idea, was so compelling that it could motivate hundreds of people to labor for years, even generations, to shape and move these mountains of rock using nothing but stone, wood, and raw human effort? The social contract required is itself a monumental achievement. These primal canvases show us the baseline. Here, the ambition is fully formed, but the technology is still in its infancy. The stones are raised, but they are largely unshaped. They declare presence and purpose, but not yet perfect control. This sets the stage for the first great technological revolution in our story, a breakthrough that would allow humanity to not just place the stone, but to truly command it. The sound of ropes straining against stone, the rhythmic creak of wooden logs, the unified chant of 100 voices. This was the orchestra of the first engineers. With no metal, no wheels as we know them, and no written plans, these communities faced a simple, colossal problem. How do you move a mountain one piece at a time? The answer was not in a single magical tool, but in a profound understanding of the world around them, harnessing the most basic laws of physics through simple machines. The lever, the roller, and the earthen ramp became their silent partners in reshaping the landscape. Think of a stubborn tree stump in your garden. You might slide a long pole underneath, place a smaller rock as a pivot point, and push down. That pole is a lever, and you have just used a fundamental principle to multiply your strength. Neolithic builders scaled this idea to the monumental. A sturdy wooden beam could become a pry bar to lift a multi-ton stone just enough to slip logs or rounded stones underneath it. Those logs then became rollers, transforming brutal dragging into a more manageable, if still back-breaking, rolling motion. For lifting stones onto platforms or stacking them, the inclined plane or ramp was the ultimate tool. By building a long, gradual slope of packed earth and timber, a task that required a vertical lift of dozens of feet was broken down into a long, steady pull. Experimental archaeologists have shown that a sledge loaded with a massive stone, its runners slicked with water or animal fat, could be moved by a coordinated team along such a track. The force required was still immense, but it was now within the realm of human possibility. The true test of this pragmatic ingenuity is written across the landscape of Britain. The smaller, distinctive blue stones at the heart of Stonehenge did not come from the local plains. Their geological fingerprint traces them to the Preseli Hills in Wales, over 150 miles away. The journey of these stones is a masterclass in Neolithic logistics, After being quarried using hammerstones and thermal shock, heating the rock with fire and then dousing it with water to cause it to crack, each several-ton block began its epic voyage. The most plausible theory involves a combination of every technique available. Teams likely maneuvered them onto wooden sledges, inching them across miles of terrain on rollers made of felled trees. Reaching a river, the stones could have been transferred onto rafts or barges for long stretches of waterborne travel, floating with the current before the final, grueling overland haul to Salisbury Plain. This was not a single summer's project, but a generational undertaking that required precise knowledge of the routes, the seasons for optimal ground conditions, and the coordination of hundreds of people from different communities. It speaks of a shared purpose so powerful it could orchestrate the movement of mountains across a continent. This entire process was built on a foundation of deep, practical knowledge. It was a science of trial and error, of understanding which local stone was hard enough to shape another, of knowing how wood behaved under tremendous stress. The workforce was almost certainly seasonal, drawn from across the region during times when farming demands were low, united by a common belief that gave meaning to their immense labor. There were no architects in the modern sense, only master builders whose blueprints were held in collective memory and tradition. This pragmatic mastery of mass and movement, of organizing human energy on a grand scale, was the critical bridge. It proved that societies could execute visions far beyond the lifespan of any single individual. Once a culture learned to command the earth in this way, to make stone obey a communal will, the next logical step was inevitable. What happens when that hard-won skill is directed not just by spiritual leaders, but by the concentrated power of a king? A new sound echoed along the Nile, the sound of a state being born. The sun beat down on a landscape transformed into a geometric dream, where mountains were not grown but built, their peaks aimed directly at the imperishable stars. This was the world of the Old Kingdom pharaohs, and here, the language of stone evolved into its first complete dialect, the dialect of absolute sovereignty. The progression is etched into the desert itself. It begins with the mastaba, a simple, flat-topped mud brick tomb for early elites. Then, under the visionary architect Imhotep, Pharaoh Djoser commissions something unprecedented, a stack of mastabas rising toward the sky, the step pyramid at Saqqara. It was a revolutionary statement, but still a series of steps. The final, breathtaking leap came with the true, smooth-sided pyramids of Giza. This evolution from mound to mountain was not just architectural, it was political. It marked the crystallization of a new kind of power, a centralized state with a god-king at its apex, capable of marshalling the entire kingdom toward a single, immortal goal. The driving force was a powerful religious ideology captured in the ancient pyramid texts inscribed within the tombs. These spells reveal the pyramid was not merely a tomb. It was a resurrection machine, a cosmic launch pad designed to propel the deceased pharaoh, now a divine being, eternally into the heavens to join the sun god Ra. The stone itself was sacred, a permanent, indestructible vessel for this celestial journey. This profound belief justified an undertaking of almost unimaginable scale, one that required the entire machinery of the state. For the first time in our story, we see a permanent, specialized workforce emerge, not seasonal volunteers, but state-sponsored quarrymen, engineers, surveyors, and laborers. They were supported by the kingdom's agricultural surplus, a bounty from the Nile's predictable floods that freed thousands from farming to become builders for the divine. The organization was a masterpiece of logistics, a symphony of coordinated effort. Fine, white casing stones were quarried from Tura across the river, while the massive core blocks came from local limestone pits. Granite for interior chambers was hauled from Aswan, hundreds of miles to the south. The key to moving these blocks was the Nile itself. During the annual inundation, when the floodwaters turned the desert edges into a network of canals, giant barges could float the stones right to the base of the plateau. Then came the ramps. While the exact configuration is still debated, evidence points to large, straight ramps built of mud brick and rubble, spiraling up around the growing pyramid core. These were the monumental conveyor belts of the ancient world, allowing teams to drag sledges bearing multi-ton blocks steadily upward. Precision was everything. The Great Pyramid sides are aligned to the cardinal directions with an error of less than a fraction of a degree, a feat requiring profound astronomical knowledge. The stones were cut and fitted with meticulous care, creating that iconic, seamless slope. This shift from the powerful but rough-hewn monuments of earlier times to this systematic, astronomically precise perfection represents a quantum leap. It was the moment monumental stonework ceased to be a communal ritual and became a state-directed mega-project, the ultimate expression of a society's total control over people, resources, and a shared vision of eternity. This Egyptian model, this fusion of divine authority, centralized administration, and stone on a colossal scale, would become a blueprint. Soon, other emerging powers would look upon these geometric mountains and ask a world-changing question: how can we speak this language of power in our own voice? Across the ocean and centuries later, another civilization spoke the language of stone with a completely different accent. While the Egyptians built smooth, geometric mountains aiming for the heavens, the Inca of the Andes mastered a technique that seemed to hug the earth itself. Their signature was not the pyramid but the polygonal wall, a breathtaking mosaic of irregular stones fitting together in a perfect, mortarless puzzle. The most famous example is a single stone in Cusco, a block with 12 meticulously carved angles that nestle flawlessly against its neighbors. This is not just artistry, it is ancient engineering genius, born from a direct conversation with a volatile landscape. The Andes are one of the most seismically active regions on Earth, and the Inca builders were not just constructing monuments, they were creating survivors. Their polygonal masonry, where each uniquely shaped block interlocked with those around it, acted like a flexible, three-dimensional net. During an earthquake, the stones in a rigid, rectangular wall would all try to move in unison, creating catastrophic stress points that would cause the entire structure to crack and collapse. But in an Inca wall, each irregular block, locked in place by its custom-fit neighbors, could shift and settle independently, dissipating the energy of the tremor. The stones would literally dance during a quake, then settle back into place, often with their alignment even stronger than before. Modern structural engineers who study these walls express profound admiration. Achieving such precision without modern tools or even a written language seems almost impossible. The builders used harder stones as hammers to pound the granite and andesite into shape, and abrasive sand mixed with water to grind the surfaces to a perfect fit. The result is joints so tight that, even after 500 years, you often cannot slide a piece of paper, let alone a credit card, between them. This mastery is displayed on a colossal scale at the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, which towers above Cusco. Here, individual stones weigh over 100 tons, yet they are carved and fitted with the same intricate care as the smaller blocks in the city below. The effort becomes even more astonishing when you trace the stones to their source. At Ollantaytambo, a site guarding the sacred valley, massive red granite blocks were quarried from a mountainside high on the opposite side of the valley. To transport them, engineers devised a system of earthen ramps and causeways, moving these titanic loads down one slope, across the rushing Yorubamba River, and up the other side, a logistical feat that rivals the movement of Stonehenge's bluestones. This approach reveals a different set of societal priorities than those of ancient Egypt. The Inca philosophy, deeply tied to the concept of aini, or reciprocal exchange with the natural world, viewed stone as a living entity. They were not commanding an inert material, but persuading it, working with its natural form and integrating their structures into the very bones of the mountains. The labor system, known as mitta, was a form of communal service owed to the state, but it was rooted in this same principle of reciprocity. The walls they built were not just for kings or gods in the distant sky, but for the community's enduring safety and cohesion, designed to withstand both geological and historical tremors. This Andean dialect in our global story teaches us that monumental language can be one of resilient harmony, a conversation with the land rather than a declaration upon it. It shows a parallel path to greatness where perfection was found not in celestial alignment, but in an unshakable embrace of the earth. Yet another civilization would listen to the stone and hear an entirely different music. Across the Aegean Sea, under the clear, sharp light of the Mediterranean sun, a new ideal was being carved from the mountainside. The gleaming white marble of the Parthenon, crowning the Athenian Acropolis, did not aim to crush the spirit with overwhelming mass or outlast eternity like a pyramid. Its power was of a different kind, speaking a language of harmony, balance, and intellectual beauty. This was the classical refinement, where monumental stonework became the physical expression of a society's highest philosophical ideals. The evolution is clear in the stone itself. Early Greek temples, like those at Paestum in Italy, feel grounded and powerful, with thick, fluted columns that bulge with archaic strength. But as Greek city-states, particularly Athens, flourished in the 5th century before the Common Era, their architecture underwent a profound transformation. It moved toward a pursuit of perfect proportion, a system so precise it was codified into the architectural orders, Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. These were not just decorative styles, they were rulebooks for beauty based on mathematical ratios often derived from the human form. The width of a column, the space between them, the height of the entablature, all were linked in a harmonious equation. The goal was to create a structure that felt instinctively right to the human eye, a reflection of the cosmos' own inherent order. This pursuit of an ideal required a revolution in technique and civic organization. The marble was quarried from Mount Pentelicus, a brilliant white stone veined with gray. Teams of skilled workers would carefully cut trenches around a block, then drive wooden wedges into channels. Soaking the wedges with water caused them to expand, cleanly splitting the stone from the bedrock with a loud crack that echoed through the hills. Transporting these blocks to the Acropolis was a feat of engineering and communal effort, using sledges and ramps, but the true genius lay in the assembly. Instead of relying on colossal weight or interlocking puzzles, Greek builders used iron clamps and dowels, sealed with molten lead, to lock the marble blocks together with invisible strength. This allowed for a new kind of openness and grace in their structures, with colonnades that seemed to breathe light and shadow. Most remarkably, the builders understood that mathematical perfection could sometimes look imperfect to the human eye. To counteract an optical illusion that makes straight columns appear to curve inward, they employed a subtle refinement called intosses. Each column of the Parthenon has a barely perceptible swell, a gentle curve, so that from a distance the entire structure appears flawlessly straight and vertical. Every horizontal line in the building is also slightly curved upward in the center, preventing the temple from seeming to sag. These were not corrections for mistakes. They were premeditated acts of artistic insight, a willingness to bend reality to achieve a higher truth of perception. The purpose of this stonework marked another seismic shift in our story. As the historian Plutarch noted of the statesman Pericles' great building program, these projects served the people, providing work and creating monuments that would be, in his words, a delight for all time. The Parthenon was not a tomb for a god-king, but a house for the city's patron deity, Athena, and a triumphant treasury for the democratic polis. It was a monument to civic pride, paid for by the collective wealth of the Athenian Empire and its democratic allies, and built by citizens, metics, and enslaved individuals in a complex, society-wide effort. The stone served the community, providing the sacred stage upon which the dramas of civic, religious, and political life unfolded. This was the ultimate refinement, the channeling of a civilization's rise into stone that expressed not raw power, but an idealized image of itself, rational, beautiful, and balanced. This concept of public architecture for civic glory would become a cornerstone of Western thought, a legacy written in marble that still shapes our city squares and public buildings today. But as this classical ideal spread, it would eventually meet the overwhelming force of an empire that had a very different vocabulary for stone, one built not on harmony, but on sheer, unifying scale. The roar of 250,000 voices thundered against a wall of travertine stone. In the heart of Rome, the Colosseum stood not as a temple to a single god, but as an altar to the empire itself, a monument where engineering became spectacle and stone served the state. This was a new chapter in our story, where the language of stone evolved from harmony to hegemony. The Roman Empire's rise was mirrored in a revolutionary, pragmatic approach to building that prioritized overwhelming scale, ruthless efficiency, and public utility. Their genius was not in perfecting a single material, but in combining them into a system. While they used exquisite marble for facing, their true innovation was hidden within the walls, a material called opus cementitium, or Roman concrete. This mixture of volcanic ash, lime, and rubble could be poured into wooden molds, setting underwater and hardening over time into a mass stronger than the stone around it. It was the ultimate flexible skeleton. Combined with this was their architectural masterstroke, the full mastery of the arch, the vault, and the dome. To understand its power, contrast it with the Greek post and lintel system. A Greek temple's horizontal stone beam, the lintel, is supported by two vertical posts or columns. The weight presses straight down, limiting the distance between supports. Now, picture the graceful curve of a Roman aqueduct. The arch works by redirecting that downward force outward and downward along its curve, channeling it into the solid piers on either side. This meant you could span much wider spaces with less material, and you could stack arches to create multi-story marvels. Stack a series of arches in a line and you get a barrel vault. Rotate an arch in a circle and you create a dome like the Pantheon's breathtaking ceiling. This engineering revolution enabled structures of unprecedented ambition. It allowed for the vast, open interior of the public baths, where citizens of all classes mingled. It created the soaring space of basilicas, where law and commerce were conducted. And it made possible the Colosseum's complex underground hypogeum, a labyrinth of tunnels, lifts, and cages that powered the spectacles above. This was architecture in service of an ideology. As the architect Vitruvius declared, good building required firmness, commodity, and delight. For Rome, commodity or utility was paramount. Their stonework was a political tool to awe, to unify, and to demonstrate the tangible benefits of the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. This required a logistical machine to match. The empire did not just build with local stone, it systematically annexed geology. Marble was quarried in Carrara, granite in Egypt, porphyry in the deserts of the East. These materials were cut in standardized sizes, shipped across Mediterranean trade routes, and used as a thin, magnificent veneer over miles of brick and concrete core. Even the humble brick was stamped with the mark of the workshop that made it, a system of quality control and accountability on an industrial scale. This organized exploitation fed an infrastructure of control, roads of fitted stone that moved legions at speed, and bridges of enduring arches that bound the provinces to the capital. Every aqueduct bringing fresh water, every forum providing space for civic life, was an argument carved in stone for the supremacy and benevolence of Roman rule. The monument was no longer a destination, it was the entire networked system. This utilitarian monumentality created a lasting template for imperial power, proving that stone could be used not just to reach for the gods or defy the earth, but to organize, administer, and pacify an entire world. But as the sun eventually set on Rome, a new force would rise in the shadows of its ruins, one that would use stone to tell a very different, deeply spiritual story. The stone did not just face the earth or honor a king, it often pointed deliberately toward the stars. Deep within the great Neolithic tomb of Newgrange in Ireland, a narrow shaft above the entrance waits in darkness for one specific moment each year. At dawn on the winter solstice, the shortest day, a single beam of sunlight pierces that tunnel, traveling 60 feet to illuminate the central chamber in a burst of golden light. This was no accident of architecture, it was a precise, engineered event, a conversation with the cosmos encoded in rock over 5,000 years ago. This reveals a universal layer in the language of monumental stonework, where structures become colossal calendars and terrestrial observatories, binding a society's power and purpose directly to the cycles of the heavens. This celestial coding is a global phenomenon. At Stonehenge, the outlying heel stone is positioned so the rising sun on the summer solstice appears to balance perfectly atop it when viewed from the circle's center. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned to true north with a precision that still astounds surveyors, its sides facing the cardinal directions with minuscule error. In the jungles of the Yucatan, the Caracol Observatory at Chichen Itza features narrow, strategically placed windows that frame the extreme positions of Venus, a planet of profound significance to Mayan cosmology. And on the coast of India, the Sun Temple of Konark is conceived as a gigantic stone chariot for the solar deity, Surya, its wheels and pillars designed to cast specific shadows that mark the hours and seasons. These are not mere decorations, they are functional instruments of stone. Achieving such precision was a monumental intellectual feat. As archaeoastronomer Clive Ruggles explains, it required generations of patient, meticulous observation. Someone had to notice year after year where the sun set on the horizon at the equinox. Someone had to track the slow, 18-year cycle of the moon or the wandering path of Venus, and then devise a way to record that knowledge without a written language. This points to the existence of a sophisticated, priestly class of knowledge keepers, an intellectual elite who could translate celestial patterns into terrestrial blueprints. The very stability of their society may have depended on this knowledge, using it to predict the flooding of the Nile, the arrival of the monsoon rains, or the optimal time for planting and harvest. By marking these cycles in immutable stone, they brought order to the chaos of nature, turning cosmic time into a reliable, communal rhythm. This leads us to the profound, reflective question at the heart of these alignments. Were these civilizations simply building practical calendars for survival, or were they attempting something far more ambitious? By replicating the order of the heavens on Earth, they may have been seeking to harness cosmic power, to draw down the influence of the gods into their temples and tombs. For a ruler, an alignment like the solstice light at Newgrange or the pyramid's northern orientation served as powerful propaganda. It demonstrated a divine mandate, proving the king or priest could not only predict the sun's journey but could literally house its light, framing their authority as a natural celestial law. The stone monument thus became a point of contact between the human and the divine, a permanent anchor tying a community's destiny to the predictable yet majestic turn of the universe. In this layer of meaning, stone is transformed from a passive material into an active medium for cosmic conversation. It is the physical script for humanity's earliest dialogue with the sky, a dialogue about time, power, and our place in a vast, orderly system. When we stand at these sites today, we are not just looking at ancient engineering, We are witnessing the moment a civilization looked up, recognized a pattern, and chose to etch its understanding into the bones of the planet for all time. This celestial ambition represents perhaps the purest form of the monumental impulse, reaching beyond earthly concerns to touch something eternal. Yet, even the most perfect alignment with the stars cannot defy the turning of historical tides. What happens when the society that raised these stones begins to falter, when the grand vision fractures, and the stone itself starts to tell a very different story? A crack in the granite tells a story of ambition interrupted. In the quarries of Aswan, Egypt, the unfinished obelisk lies still attached to the bedrock, a single piece of red granite that would have stood over 100 feet tall and weighed an estimated 1,200 tons. Its surfaces are scarred with the distinctive grooves left by teams of workers pounding the stone with handheld dolerite balls, a testament to a technique of immense patience and brutal, repetitive labor. This colossal fragment forces us to confront the most persistent enigma in our story. How did cultures with what we consider simple tools achieve what looks, to our modern eyes, like impossible precision? The evidence presents us with puzzles that even mainstream archaeology acknowledges are not fully solved. Inside the Serapeum of Saqqara, near the Step Pyramid, are 24 gigantic granite boxes, each carved from a single block and placed in underground niches. The precision of their surfaces is startling. The flatness, the perfect 90-degree interior corners, and the consistent thickness of the walls rival what could be produced by advanced machinery today. Egyptologists attribute this to generations of highly skilled craftsmen using copper saws with abrasive sand and meticulous hand polishing over countless hours. Yet, the sheer consistency and scale of the work leaves even experts marveling at the level of artisan knowledge, now lost, that such a project required. Further across the world, another mystery emerges from the stone itself. At sites like Sacsayhuaman in Peru or certain temples in Egypt, observers have noted stones with surfaces that appear vitrified, as if they were momentarily melted or subjected to extreme, localized heat. Some researchers have proposed theories involving advanced ancient knowledge of focused heat applications, perhaps using lenses or chemical compounds to soften stone for shaping. Mainstream archaeology often points to more gradual processes, like vitrification from prolonged ritual fires or the natural glazing effect of mineral leaching over centuries. This dialogue between alternative hypotheses and conventional explanations is healthy, for it highlights a crucial point: our understanding of ancient technology is still evolving. The gaps in the historical record are real. Consider the peculiar stone bosses found on many Inca walls, those unexplained knobs or protrusions left on otherwise perfectly finished blocks. Were they practical handles for maneuvering the stones into place with ropes, alignment guides for the builders, or perhaps ritual elements left as symbolic offerings to the living stone? Archaeologists debate their purpose, a reminder that we can understand what was built without always fully grasping the nuanced how of every step. The likely truth behind these enigmas is not a single lost secret, but a combination of factors we often underestimate. It was the power of highly specialized, orally transmitted knowledge, where a master mason knew exactly how a certain granite would fracture under a dolerite pounder, or how to achieve a flat surface by checking it against a precisely leveled mud plaster guide. It was the application of simple tools like the bow drill or the water level, with a lifetime of skill behind them. Most of all, it was the immense patience afforded by social structures that could support long-term projects, where shaping a single block over a year was not inefficiency, but dedication to a generational vision. This exploration reminds us that technological evolution is rarely a clean, linear progression we can perfectly reconstruct. Sometimes knowledge is not lost because it was magical, but because it was so deeply embedded in a specific culture, taught hand to hand and voice to voice, that when that society transformed, the intricate steps of the dance were forgotten, leaving only the breathtaking stone partner standing silent. If the techniques themselves can become mysteries, then what does the final, unfinished state of a monument whisper about the society that left it behind? The mountain itself was the first monument to be dismantled. High in the Apuan Alps of Italy, the Carrara quarries present a landscape turned inside out, where sheer white cliffs are not natural formations but the meticulously carved negative space of human ambition. To stand there is to witness the literal deconstruction of a mountain, block by colossal block, to build the Renaissance dream of Rome. This reveals a profound truth often overlooked in our story of finished monuments. The true birthplace of monumental stonework is not the temple floor but the quarry face. The choice and procurement of stone were never merely practical decisions. They were fundamental acts of economic, aesthetic, and political declaration. Every civilization spoke through its chosen material. Egyptian pharaohs sought the unyielding red granite of Aswan for its symbolic eternity, a stone meant to outlast the ages. Greek architects prized the luminous marble of Mount Pentelicus for its ability to capture light and express idealized human form. Roman engineers favored the durable travertine from Tivoli, a stone that embodied the pragmatic strength and resilience of the empire itself. The material was the first word in a long statement, but claiming that word required a staggering logistical feat, a hidden empire of extraction that operated long before the first foundation stone was laid. To understand this, we travel to the very source of Egypt's most powerful stone, the granite quarries at Aswan. Here, the desert heat shimmers above a chaotic field of half-extracted obelisks and abandoned blocks, a fossilized workshop of pharaonic industry. The process began with master quarrymen reading the granite like a text, identifying natural fissures and plotting the extraction of a perfect block. Teams of workers, using nothing harder than balls of dolerite, a dense volcanic rock, would pound out a deep trench around the desired stone. This was a marathon of percussion, a rhythmic, brutal symphony that could last for months, consuming countless handheld pounders that shattered under the strain. Once the block was isolated, the critical step of detachment awaited. Workers carved a series of slots along the base of the trench and drove dry wooden wedges into them. Then they poured water over the wedges. As the wood swelled with tremendous, even pressure, it created a clean fracture along a predetermined line, shearing the multi-hundred-ton block free from the living bedrock. This precise application of simple physics highlights the profound practical knowledge these artisans possessed. Yet the true test came next: movement. The engineers waited for the annual Nile flood, when the rising waters transformed the desert into a temporary harbor. They would drag the colossal block on a lubricated sledge down to the river's edge, where it was loaded onto a specially built gargantuan barge. The buoyancy of the floodwaters was essential, lifting the barge just enough to navigate the river without grounding. This was a logistical dance perfectly synchronized with the seasons, a calendar of extraction and transport written into the rhythm of the natural world. To sustain this operation far from the royal capitals, permanent quarrying colonies were established. These were company towns of the ancient world, complete with housing, workshops, and administrative buildings for officials who recorded output and managed supplies. The development of specialized tools was constant. Beyond pounders and wedges, we see the use of copper saws, which were ineffective on granite alone but became powerful cutting tools when fed with a constant stream of abrasive quartz sand. This entire system, the skilled labor force, the seasonal transport logistics, the administrative oversight, transformed a remote geological formation into a strategic asset. Control over a prized quarry like Aswan or Carrara was not just about access to good stone. It was a lever of imperial power. It demonstrated a state's ability to project its will across vast distances, to command specialized labor, and to marshal the forces of nature itself in service of its vision. The quarry, therefore, tells the first half of the story. It is a blueprint of supply chains, labor management, and geological intimacy. The silent, scarred mountainside speaks as eloquently as the polished temple floor, for it records the immense effort required to bring a vision down to earth before a single stone could be raised toward the sky. This hidden world of extraction was the indispensable foundation for every monument we have marveled at. But what happens when the flow from the quarry to the building site suddenly stops, when the grand vision is abandoned mid-sentence, leaving the stone itself to tell a tale of interruption? Bones found near the workers' village at Giza tell a story not of slaves but of state-sponsored care. These individuals who built the pharaoh's eternal home received treatment for broken limbs and survived into old age, their remains buried with simple offerings near the pyramids they raised. This single archaeological insight shatters the simplistic Hollywood image of endless, brutalized toil. It forces us to look deeper, to see the vast and varied social engines, the intricate systems of obligation, belief, and organization that actually powered these stone dreams into reality. The human reality behind the monuments is not a single story of oppression, but a complex spectrum of labor models, each reflecting the very soul of the society that employed it. At one end, we have the earliest communal projects. The raising of a stone circle or a passage tomb likely relied on seasonal, conscripted labor. In a farming community, the window between planting and harvest, or after the harvest itself, provided a natural pause. During this time, people from across a region could be called together by spiritual leaders or elders, united by a shared religious purpose to contribute their labor as a form of communal duty or sacred service. This was not a permanent workforce but a periodic gathering of the tribe for a transcendent goal. The Old Kingdom of Egypt represents a monumental shift toward permanence and state control. Here, a more structured system emerged. Evidence from the Giza Plateau suggests a rotating workforce of perhaps 20,000 individuals, divided into crews with names like the Friends of Khufu or the Drunkards of Menkaure. These were not year-round slaves, but likely farmers recruited from villages across Egypt during the Nile's inundation, when their fields were underwater and agricultural work was impossible. In return for their service, the state provided them with housing, food, a diet rich in bread, fish, and meat as evidenced by animal bones at the site, and even medical care. This was a form of national service, a tax paid in labor, but one that operated within a framework of reciprocal obligation from the central authority. The Roman model was brutally pragmatic, a mirror of the empire's own diverse and stratified society. Major projects employed a mixture of highly skilled, salaried artisans, master stonemasons, engineers, and hydraulic experts alongside legions of soldiers for whom building roads, forts, and aqueducts was a standard military duty. And yes, enslaved individuals formed a significant part of the labor pool, especially for the most dangerous and grueling tasks in quarries and mines. This combination created a ruthless efficiency where specialized knowledge, disciplined military organization, and coerced labor were all harnessed to accelerate construction on an imperial scale. In the Andes, the Inca perfected a system that aligned with their philosophy of reciprocity, known as mita. This was a rotational labor tax, a mandatory public service owed by every household to the state. For a set period each year, a community would send a portion of its able-bodied workers to contribute to state projects building terraces, roads, or monumental temples like Sacsayhuaman. In return, the state provided food, drink, and ceremonial celebration during the work, and more broadly, ensured security, organized storage against famine, and maintained the infrastructure that bound the empire together. It was an obligation, but one framed as a mutual exchange that strengthened the social fabric. The physical cost, however, was etched into the workers' own bodies. Bioarchaeological studies of remains from various sites reveal a common, sobering signature. There is evidence of severe osteoarthritis in the shoulders, knees, and spines, a testament to years of carrying immense loads. Healed fractures speak of constant danger, while certain lines in the teeth and bones, indicators of childhood nutritional stress or episodes of serious illness, show these were often individuals who endured significant hardship early in life, yet were still pressed into demanding physical service. This evidence complicates the narrative further. It moves us beyond the simple binary of slave versus volunteer. It suggests that for many, participation in these grand projects was likely a point of communal pride and identity, a way to contribute to something that would outlive them and honor their gods or rulers even as it came at a steep and lifelong physical price. The scale of labor, therefore, becomes the truest measure of a society's concentration of power. It answers the fundamental question of who could command whom and for what purpose. Whether through spiritual persuasion, reciprocal obligation, or outright coercion, the ability to direct human energy on such a scale was the ultimate proof of a civilization's rise. This relationship between the monument and its makers was a delicate balance. Could such a project be both an oppressive burden and a unifying, identity-forging endeavor? The answer across cultures is often yes. The stones themselves hold this duality, immortalizing both the glory of the ruler and the silent, collective strain of the thousands whose names are lost to time. As we turn our gaze eastward, we will see how another ancient civilization refined this balance into an art form, building not just with stone, but with an entire philosophy of cosmic order and human harmony. The sheer cliffs of Ellora hold a temple that defies the logic of construction. In the humid air of Maharashtra, India, the Kailasa temple was not assembled stone by stone, but revealed, as if by divine instruction, from the living rock of a mountainside. This is a monument created not by addition, but by subtraction, a 200,000-ton block of basalt meticulously excavated from the top of a cliff downward over generations. It represents a profound divergence in our global story, a distinctly Eastern expression where monumental stonework became a spiritual act of uncovering sacred space, of freeing form from the illusion of solid matter. This philosophy of carving inward rather than building outward shaped entire civilizations. Across India, from the serene, painted caves of Ajanta to the towering, freestanding Gomechwara statue at Shravanabelagola, rock-cut architecture served Buddhist, Hindu, and Jain traditions. The goal was not merely to house a deity, but to create an environment that embodied a cosmic principle. By chiseling a temple, a monastery, or a colossal statue directly from a single rock face, the builders were performing a form of devotion. They were demonstrating that the divine was not somewhere else, but already present within the world, waiting to be revealed by the disciplined hand of the faithful. The technical mastery required was staggering. Using iron chisels and hammer stones, artisans would begin by carving the elaborate facade from the top of the cliff, working downward in successive levels to prevent rock falls. They had to visualize the entire complex interior pillared halls, shrines, balconies, in 3 dimensions within the solid stone before making the first cut. There was no margin for error, no option to replace a miscut block. This was architecture as an act of supreme confidence and patience, a dialogue with the mountain itself. Far to the east, in the jungles of Cambodia, another civilization spoke a related but unique dialect in stone. Angkor Wat, the vast temple complex built by the Khmer Empire in the 12th century, appears at first glance to follow the additive model of stacking blocks. Yet its perfection lies in a different kind of harmony. The entire structure is a representation of Mount Meru, the mythical center of the Hindu and Buddhist cosmos. Its concentric galleries and soaring central towers mimic the mountain's peaks, while the massive moat surrounding it symbolizes the cosmic ocean. The sandstone blocks, quarried from a distant mountain and floated along canals, were fitted together with such precision that they required no mortar. The joints are so tight that the entire structure moves as a single, monolithic entity during the region's seasonal expansion and contraction, a testament to an almost supernatural understanding of material and scale. This achievement was underpinned by the Khmer Empire's organizational genius, particularly its mastery of water. A vast, engineered network of canals, reservoirs, and moats not only transported the stone but also managed the monsoon floods and irrigated the rice fields that fed the immense labor force. The construction was likely a form of religious service, a way for the king and his people to accumulate merit and align the earthly kingdom with the divine order. This tradition of cosmic replication, of building an axis mundi, a world axis on Earth, reveals a different ideological engine than those that drove the pyramids or the Parthenon. Here, monumentality was less about projecting state power over people, and more about achieving a mystical union between the human and the celestial realms. The stone was not a tool of hegemony, but a medium for mapping the universe, for creating a permanent, sacred geography where heaven and earth met. This expansive view reminds us that the language of stone is not a single tongue, but a family of related dialects, each shaped by the unique spiritual and philosophical soil from which it grew. From the subtractive revelation of Indian cliffs to the cosmic mountains of Southeast Asia, these traditions show that the drive to monumentalize could be fueled as powerfully by the quest for enlightenment as by the will to command. The solid, earth-bound mass of ancient stone began to dissolve into light. In the towns of medieval Europe, a new silhouette pierced the skyline, not the horizontal sprawl of a Roman basilica, but the vertiginous leap of a Gothic cathedral. This was a profound pivot in our story, where the language of monumental stonework was translated into a new dialect of faith. The driving force was no longer the glory of an emperor or a pharaoh, but the overwhelming devotion of a Christian society, and the stone itself was asked to perform a miraculous new task, to become weightless, to frame the divine. The Romanesque style that first emerged after Rome's fall still spoke in the old vocabulary, with thick walls, rounded arches, and small windows, creating fortress-like churches that felt protective and grounded. But a revolution was brewing in the minds of master masons. Their breakthrough, which we now call the Gothic style, was a suite of engineering innovations that transformed the very physics of building. The key was the pointed arch. Unlike the rounded Roman arch, which pushes weight outward and downward with great force, the pointed arch channels that weight more directly downward. This simple change allowed for taller, narrower openings. Pair this with the ribbed vault, where stone ribs formed a skeletal framework for the ceiling, and the weight of the roof could be concentrated at specific points. Then came the masterstroke, the flying buttress. These elegant, external stone arms reached out from the upper walls like the roots of a stone tree, catching the outward thrust from the vaults and channeling it safely into the ground. This exoskeleton of support meant the walls themselves were freed from their load-bearing duty. They could become vast, fragile canvases of stained glass, filling the interior with a kaleidoscope of colored light that told biblical stories to an often illiterate populace. The stone was no longer about solidity, but about transcendence, creating a space that felt like a glimpse of heaven itself. The knowledge to execute this vision was held by a new kind of elite, the master mason. These men were not just laborers, but geometers, engineers, and artists. Their blueprints were often secret, encoded in the layouts of cathedral floor labyrinths or in the intricate geometric patterns of illuminated manuscripts. They worked with a sacred geometry, using compass and square to derive every proportion from perfect shapes, believing they were replicating God's own mathematical order in the universe. This was a communal project on a staggering timeline. A cathedral like Chartres or Notre Dame could take over a century to complete, spanning multiple generations of craftsmen. The entire community contributed, from the nobles who funded it to the guilds who provided skilled carvers and glaziers, to the common villagers who hauled stone. It was an act of collective faith, a testament to a society's long-term stability and its shared aspiration for the eternal. Intriguingly, this new faith often built directly upon the old. Across Europe, early Christian churches were frequently constructed on ancient pagan sites, or even incorporated standing stones and megaliths into their foundations. A standing stone might become a corner marker, or a sacred well might be rededicated to a Christian saint. This was more than practicality. It was a powerful symbolic act, an overlay of a new spiritual landscape onto the old, claiming the ancient power of the place for the new god. The medieval cathedral, therefore, represents a fascinating evolution. It maintained the monumental scale of its predecessors, but its purpose shifted from projecting state power to inspiring personal awe. Its engineering reached new heights of sophistication to create an illusion of divine lightness, and its construction wove together the secret knowledge of masons, the enduring faith of a community, and the very bones of a much older world. It proved that stone could speak not only of power and eternity, but also of aspiration, light, and a heaven that felt almost within reach. The sculptor's hand did not create form, it answered a call from within the stone. Michelangelo would spend months in the Carrara quarries, running his hands over the raw marble faces, listening for the figure he believed was already imprisoned inside, waiting for his chisel to set it free. This intimate, almost spiritual relationship between the artist and the material defines the Renaissance rebirth of monumental stonework. It was a conscious, passionate return to the language of classical Rome and Greece, but now the grammar had changed. The purpose was no longer to glorify a distant god-king or a communal faith, but to celebrate human potential, individual genius, and the rediscovered beauty of the natural world. The monument became a testament to the mind of the person who conceived it. This intellectual shift was codified by thinkers like Leon Battista Alberti, who in his work De Reedificatoria argued that beauty in architecture arose from a harmony of all the parts, so that nothing could be added or taken away without destroying the whole. This was a rational, mathematical pursuit of perfection, deeply inspired by ancient Roman texts like those of Vitruvius, but filtered through a new, humanist lens. The architectural orders, the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian, were studied, measured, and revived not as rigid rules, but as a proven language for achieving this ideal harmony. The true stage for this revival was the city itself, and no project encapsulates its ambition more than St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Its construction spanned over a century, a symphony composed by a succession of brilliant individual minds. Bramante envisioned the central plan, a perfect geometric form inspired by ancient Roman temples. Michelangelo, taking over in his 70s, redesigned the soaring dome, simplifying Bramante's complex design into a majestic, cohesive whole that dominated the skyline. Finally, Gian Lorenzo Bernini added the theatrical, embracing colonnade in the piazza, a stone gesture of welcome that framed space itself as a dramatic experience. This was not the work of an anonymous guild, but of celebrated artists, their personal styles and visions literally set in stone for eternity. The driving force behind this explosion of stone was a new kind of patron. Wealthy banking families like the Medici in Florence did not just fund buildings, they commissioned personal legacies. Their palazzos, chapels, and public fountains were statements of civic pride and individual taste, blending classical motifs with contemporary innovation. The stonework served a dual purpose. It beautified the city for all its citizens while broadcasting the refined intellect and power of the patron who paid for it. This era reconnected with the technical past, studying the ruins of the Colosseum to understand Roman concrete, or measuring the Pantheon to master the dome. but it infused that knowledge with a new spirit. The monument was now a dialogue between the ancient world and the modern self, a physical proof that the individual human mind could not only match, but could also build upon the grandeur of antiquity. The Renaissance shifted the axis of monumental creation from the divine mandate of a ruler to the inspired vision of the artist, planting the seed for our modern world where architecture is so often seen as the signature of a single, brilliant name. This celebration of the individual, however, would soon meet a new age of reason, one that would seek to impose a different kind of order upon the stone, an order drawn not from ancient ruins, but from the clean lines of geometry and the logic of the machine. The scream of a steam whistle tore through the quiet of ancient quarries. For millennia, the relationship between civilization and stone had been a slow, intimate dialogue of muscle, lever, and patient observation. The Industrial Revolution shattered that conversation, replacing it with the deafening, efficient roar of the machine. This was not merely a change in tools, it was a fundamental reordering of possibility, where monumental ambition was no longer bounded by the limits of human strength or seasonal time. The very nature of what stone could be and what it could represent was about to be transformed forever. The revolution began at the source, in the quarry itself. Gone were the rhythmic taps of dolerite pounders. Now, controlled blasts of dynamite fractured mountainsides in minutes, freeing more stone in a single day than a pharaonic crew could in a year. Steam-powered channeling machines with their relentless iron teeth sliced clean trenches through granite with mechanical indifference. The most back-breaking challenge of all, moving mass, was conquered by the railway and the steam crane. Multi-hundred-ton blocks that once required a festival of human coordination could now be hoisted by a single puffing machine, loaded onto a flatbed carriage and whisked across continents. This technological leap caused the scale of projects to explode, not through larger armies of laborers, but through the sheer multiplicative force of mechanized power. This new power found its voice in the neoclassical megaprojects of the 19th century. From the expanding dome of the United States Capitol to the imposing colonnade of the British Museum, nations clothed their growing authority in the borrowed robes of Greece and Rome. The stone was no longer just local limestone or regional marble, it was a global commodity. Granite was quarried in Scotland and shipped to build lighthouses across the British Empire. Whole Egyptian obelisks, the very symbols of pharaonic might, were carefully cradled in custom-built steamships and transplanted to the hearts of Paris and London, becoming trophies of imperial reach. Monumentality was now something that could be ordered from a catalogue, engineered by a firm, and assembled on a schedule. The connection between the stone and the society that raised it grew more distant, more abstract. A cathedral once grew from the local soil, its stone telling a geological story of the region. Now, a parliament building could be clad in stone from 6 different continents, a geological patchwork representing not a place but an empire. This shift prompts a profound and reflective question. In this age of machine-made monuments, did something essential in the symbolic language of stone begin to fade? When a 100-ton column is shaped by a milling machine instead of a master mason's hand, is its message of permanence and power somehow different? The craftsmanship, the direct human struggle with the material that once encoded a society's patience and skill into every surface, was now often hidden beneath a veneer of industrial perfection. The monument became a statement of logistical and economic capability as much as cultural or spiritual belief. It represented a new phase in our long story, one where the awe inspired by the structure began to share space with awe for the technology that built it. The machine had not just changed how we shaped stone, it had begun to reshape why we valued it. This technological detachment would soon lead to an even more radical question: what if we could leave stone behind entirely? A gleaming curtain wall of glass reflects only the sky, a surface with no memory of its own. The 20th century did not abandon the monumental impulse, but it found a new vocabulary, one written in steel, poured in concrete, and framed in glass. This shift marks a profound paradox in our long story. As civilization's technical reach soared to literal new heights, the ancient foundational dialogue with stone, the very material that had defined monumentality for millennia, receded from the structural core of our greatest buildings. The driving force was a suite of new materials that promised liberation. Reinforced concrete, with its steel skeleton embedded within, could be molded into almost any shape and bore tremendous loads without the need for thick, weighty walls. Structural steel allowed for frames of incredible strength and lightness, creating the skeleton upon which the skin of a building could be hung. Together, they enabled the skyscraper, a form that redefined the urban skyline not as a collection of solid masses, but as a vertical landscape of light and air. The Burj Khalifa in Dubai is the ultimate expression of this, a tapering needle of concrete and glass that seems to defy gravity itself, reaching for the clouds in a way no stone pyramid ever could. In this new paradigm, stone was often demoted. It became a thin veneer, a decorative cladding glued to a steel frame, or polished slabs for a lobby floor. Its role transformed from being the literal backbone of a monument to providing a visual echo of permanence and prestige. This material evolution speaks volumes about shifting societal values. The premium was now on speed of construction, economic efficiency, and the expressive power of engineering itself. The monument was no longer a testament to commanding nature's most durable material, but to transcending material limitations altogether. The statement became about human ingenuity, about the thrilling possibility of the new. Yet, in our most sacred spaces of memory and emotion, stone has never truly surrendered its voice. Consider the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. Its power derives not from towering mass, but from a simple, stark wall of polished black granite sunk into the earth. The stone's mirror-like surface reflects the viewer, physically connecting the living with the names of those being remembered, making the monument a deeply personal, interactive experience. Similarly, the reflecting pools at the National September 11th Memorial are set within the footprints of the former towers, their cascading water framed by bronze panels inscribed with names, all set upon a plaza of granite. Here, the stone provides the solemn, enduring stage for a ritual of reflection and flowing water, a symbol of continuity. In these contexts, stone is chosen precisely for what it has always represented: solidity, permanence, and a tangible connection to the earth. It carries a gravity that glass and steel often cannot. This brings us to a pivotal question for our own time. We live in an age of digital virtuality, where communities form online and experiences are often mediated through screens. In such a world, does physical monumentality, built from any material, still hold the same definitive power to shape and declare a civilization's identity? Our skylines are testaments to our technical prowess, but do they speak to our collective soul with the same clarity as a stone circle or a cathedral? Perhaps the meaning has simply fragmented. We still raise physical memorials for our most profound collective experiences, instinctively reaching for materials like granite to anchor memory in the physical world. Yet our most ubiquitous modern monuments might be the data centers and server farms, vast, windowless fortresses of concrete that house the invisible architecture of our digital lives. Their monumental scale is undeniable, but their purpose and language are entirely new, focused on processing power and connectivity rather than spiritual awe or imperial glory. The story of stone, therefore, does not end with obsolescence but with specialization. It has retreated from the front lines of structural innovation to the sacred ground of symbolic weight. This forces a final, evaluative look at the landscape we have built. If we can read the rise of civilizations in their stonework, What does our own glass and steel silhouette say about us, and what enduring messages are we choosing to carve once more into the living rock? The polished stone face of an Assyrian king gazes down not at his subjects but at his own meticulously carved conquests. This is not merely decoration, it is a permanent press release in granite. To truly read the story in the stone, we must move beyond admiring its beauty or engineering and recognize its most consistent, powerful role as a deliberate instrument of politics. Across millennia and continents, those who commanded society's resources have used monumental stonework as a primary tool for propaganda, social cohesion, and legitimizing their own authority. The scale and style were never accidental. They were calculated choices in a theater of power designed to speak directly to the human psyche. Consider the towering colossi of Ramses II, carved directly into the cliffs at Abu Simbel. Their overwhelming size was a message to anyone approaching Egypt's southern frontier. It declared, the ruler who can command such works is not a mere man, he is a force of nature, a god on earth whose domain is eternal and unassailable. The intended audience was dual. It reassured and awed his own people with a display of divine stability, while simultaneously warning rival kingdoms of his limitless reach. This is the essence of monumental propaganda. It projects an image of unchallengeable power to secure obedience at home and respect or fear abroad. Political anthropologists describe this as creating a theater of power, where the monument becomes the permanent stage set for a narrative the ruler wishes to enact. The Assyrians mastered this. Their palace walls were lined not with abstract patterns, but with vast, detailed stone reliefs depicting military campaigns, sieges, and the orderly submission of conquered peoples. For the court elite, these were triumphant histories. For foreign ambassadors and provincial governors, they were stark, intimidating reminders of the consequences of defiance. This language of stone propaganda evolved but never faded. Napoleon Bonaparte, seeking to anchor his new empire in a glorious lineage, reached back to Rome. His Arc de Triomphe in Paris, a colossal neoclassical arch, served one clear purpose: to commemorate his grand army and frame his military conquests as a continuation of imperial Roman glory. The style was deliberately borrowed to borrow legitimacy. Centuries later, this tactic found a dark, modern echo. Totalitarian regimes of the 20th century understood the psychology of scale. They employed stark, oversized stone architecture, vast plazas, and relentless, repetitive facades designed to physically overwhelm the individual, making a person feel insignificant before the monolithic power of the state. The architecture itself was meant to crush the spirit of rebellion by magnifying the presence of authority in every public space. Yet, the same stone that can intimidate can also heal and bind. This is the crucial dual purpose in our political reading. For every monument built to glorify a single ruler, there is another erected to unite a community in shared memory. Modern war memorials, like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, use stone's permanence to create sacred sites of collective grief and honor. They transform personal loss into a public legacy, fostering social cohesion around shared values and sacrifice. A neoclassical bank building in a modern financial district uses a similar visual language of columns and heavy stone, not to threaten, but to project an image of stability, trust, and enduring value to its clients. The material and the style whisper of Roman solidity and Greek rationality, lending ancient credibility to modern institutions. Therefore, when we stand before any great stone structure, we must ask two simultaneous questions. Who built this and who were they talking to? Was the message directed inward to unify and inspire their own people with a shared identity or a glorious past? Or was it projected outward, a stark declaration of dominance to rivals over the horizon? Often, it was both. The Great Wall of China was a formidable defensive utility, but its endless, serpentine presence across mountain ridges was also a breathtaking statement of the emperor's will, a stone decree of territorial sovereignty visible for miles. Understanding this intentional duality, the capacity to both intimidate and unite, is the master key to deciphering the political language etched in stone throughout history. It reveals that the monument is never silent, it is always in conversation, performing a role assigned by the civilization that raised it. And sometimes that civilization chooses to speak not of power or unity, but of something far more mysterious, leaving behind puzzles that seem to defy the very timeline of progress we think we know. Stone was not just a spiritual or political tool, it was the original economic stimulus package. To see the pyramids of Giza as only tombs is to miss their other, equally vital function. They were colossal public works programs, engines that drove the entire economy of the Old Kingdom. This relationship between monumental stonework and economic systems forms a hidden blueprint, a financial pulse we can read in the quarries, the transport routes, and the very distribution of labor. The foundational requirement for any such project was a surplus. A society needed to produce more food, more goods, or control more mineral wealth than was required for its day-to-day survival. This excess capital, whether in the form of grain, silver, or labor hours, could then be diverted from immediate consumption into long-term, non-productive investment. In Egypt, the predictable flooding of the Nile created an agricultural windfall. The state collected a portion of this harvest as a tax, storing it in granaries. That stored grain became the currency that fed the pyramid workforce, paid the artisans, and compensated the overseers. The monument, therefore, acted as a sophisticated mechanism for wealth redistribution. It took surplus grain from the provinces and pumped it back into the economy through wages, creating demand for everything from pottery and bread to linen and tools. This circulation prevented wealth from simply pooling at the top, instead fueling a vast network of supporting industries. Specialized trades flourished. Quarrymen, barge builders, rope makers, coppersmiths, and scribes for administration all found sustained employment. The project created its own ecosystem, stimulating innovation in logistics, engineering, and resource management. The scale of this economic activity offers a clear snapshot of a civilization's organizational power. We can trace a society's priorities by following where it directed its capital. For instance, the funding of a Gothic cathedral reveals the complex tapestry of the medieval economy. Money flowed from multiple streams, the tithes of the faithful, the donations of wealthy nobles seeking spiritual favor, the sale of indulgences, and the contributions of powerful trade guilds who would sponsor a chapel window in exchange for recognition. Furthermore, the cathedral itself became an economic hub. Pilgrims traveling to visit sacred relics needed food, lodging, and souvenirs, supporting local inns, taverns, and markets. The stone structure was both a spiritual destination and a powerful generator of commercial activity. Conversely, the sudden halt of a monumental project can be a stark economic indicator. Across the Maya world, we find pyramids and temples that were abandoned mid-construction, their upper levels left rough and unfinished. This frozen moment in stone often signals a catastrophic break, a collapse in the economic system that sustained the project. Perhaps a prolonged drought devastated the agricultural surplus. Maybe a shift in trade routes drained royal coffers, or internal conflict shattered the political consensus needed to coordinate such vast efforts. The unfinished block is an economic autopsy, revealing the precise moment when the flow of capital and collective will was severed. By tracing the life cycle of these stone projects, from the marshalling of resources to their potential abandonment, we are not just studying architecture. We are auditing an ancient civilization. We see which sectors of the economy were robust enough to be leveraged, how wealth was mobilized and distributed, and what happened when that delicate balance failed. The monument stands as a permanent ledger, its accounts written in the tonnage of moved rock and the organization of the workforce that moved it. This financial lens reveals that the true cost of a pyramid was not measured in gold, but in the total economic energy a society could redirect from present needs toward a permanent future. And sometimes that redirected energy points not toward the sky, but toward a profound and deliberate connection with the land itself, a relationship where the monument is not built upon the earth, but is consciously woven into its living fabric. The stone did not always arrive. Sometimes the builders went to meet it halfway. High on the sun-baked cliffs of Mesa Verde, an entire civilization did not construct a village, they discovered one, tucked into the natural alcoves of the canyon. Here, the architecture is not separate from the landscape. It is a conversation with it, a perfect fusion of human need and geological gift. This reveals a deeper layer in our story, a dynamic dialogue where civilizations did not simply impose their will upon the earth, but listened to it, learned from it, and allowed the very bones of the land to shape their monumental vision. To understand a culture's stonework, we must first understand the stage upon which it was built, the unique grammar of local geology, climate, and ecology that gave every civilization its distinctive accent. The most fundamental constraint was also the greatest inspiration, the stone itself. In Mesopotamia, the vast alluvial plains offered no natural building stone, only mud and reeds. This limitation birthed an entire architectural language of mudbrick, which in turn led to the development of carved stone reliefs and glazed tiles as decorative, precious cladding for their ziggurats. The material scarcity made stone a luxury, reserved for declaring the power of gods and kings in vivid, narrative scenes. Contrast this with Egypt, where the Nile cut a fertile ribbon through a desert ringed by perfect quarries. The abundant, fine-grained limestone of the plateau provided the core blocks for the pyramids, while the distant, unyielding granite quarries of Assuan supplied the material for obelisks and sarcophagi meant to last for eternity. The local geology did not just supply material, it dictated possibility. You cannot carve a 100-ton obelisk from mud, and you cannot quickly build a towering ziggurat from distant, hard granite. The available stone set the terms of the conversation, but the dialogue went far beyond simple procurement. Monumental projects often served to amplify and sanctify the natural features already present in the landscape. Tombs were placed in womb-like caves, symbolizing a return to the earth and rebirth. Temples were deliberately aligned with distant mountain peaks, which were themselves considered sacred, drawing the power of the Apus, or mountain spirits, into the human realm. The entire design of Newgrange, capturing the winter solstice sun, is a profound example of architecture harnessing a celestial event framed by the natural horizon. This was not just observation, it was integration, weaving the monument into the existing tapestry of cosmic and terrestrial order. Some of the most sophisticated stonework was in fact a form of environmental management. The Inca, masters of working with the volatile Andes, did not fight their steep slopes, they collaborated with them. Their vast, intricate terrace systems, built with precisely fitted stone retaining walls, were monumental achievements in hydraulic and agricultural engineering. These were not merely fields, they were stone symphonies that prevented catastrophic erosion, created microclimates for different crops, and transformed unstable mountainsides into fertile, productive farmland. The stonework managed water flow, controlled temperature, and literally shaped the ecosystem that sustained the empire. This reciprocal relationship challenges the simplistic view of ancient builders as conquerors of nature. In many cases, they were its careful students and partners. The cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde are a powerful testament to this. By building within the south-facing cliff alcoves, the ancestral pueblones gained natural insulation, shelter from the elements, and a defensible position, all while leaving the fertile mesa tops above for agriculture. Their architecture was a direct, intelligent response to the opportunities and constraints of their specific environment. The monument, therefore, becomes a point of intersection. It is where human ambition meets geological reality, where spiritual belief engages with celestial mechanics, and where social need negotiates with ecological limits. The rise of a civilization is not just written in the stone it moves, but in how it listens to the stone already in place. This dialogue between culture and landscape is the silent, foundational context for every structure we have marveled at, the essential backdrop against which the drama of innovation, power, and belief was performed. And sometimes that performance reaches such a pitch of perfection that it stops us cold, forcing a question that echoes down the centuries, not about how they built it, but about the very nature of the knowledge they possessed. The silence of an abandoned quarry speaks volumes. At Baalbek in Lebanon, 3 colossal limestone blocks known as the crane stones rest eternally in their birthplace, each weighing over 800 tons. They are the largest worked stones in human history, yet they never reached their destination. Their story, frozen in mid-extraction, offers a powerful and sobering truth. The evolution of monumental stonework does not only chart a civilization's rise, it can also map its sudden stall, its quiet transformation, or its catastrophic collapse. To understand this, we must learn to read the negative spaces, the projects that were conceived in grandeur but left incomplete. Unfinished monuments and abruptly silent quarries are archaeological red flags. They are the broken sentences in a civilization story, hinting at a crisis that severed the flow of will, resources, and labor. A sudden stop in construction is rarely random. It signals a fracture in the complex system that makes monumentality possible. This fracture can come from many directions. Political instability or civil war shatters the centralized authority needed to coordinate decades-long projects. An economic crisis drains the treasury and the surplus that feeds the workforce. A profound religious transformation can render the old forms of sacred architecture obsolete overnight. Or an environmental disaster, like a prolonged drought or a shift in climate, can undermine the agricultural foundation of the entire society. We see this pattern etched across time and continents. In Egypt, the monumental language itself evolved in response to vulnerability. The age of the colossal, exposed pyramids gave way to the hidden, rock-cut tombs of the Valley of the Kings. This was more than an architectural trend, it was a strategic retreat. The pyramids, for all their imposing might, were beacons for tomb robbers. The shift to concealed, subterranean tombs carved into the desert cliffs reflects a change in royal power and priority, moving from a very public declaration of divinity to a more guarded, secretive effort to achieve eternity in an insecure world. A more definitive silence fell upon the classic Maya cities. Across the jungles of Mesoamerica, the meticulous carving of stelae, the intricate decoration of temple facades, and the grand projects of palace expansion ceased with a jarring finality. The stones were left half-dressed, the scaffolds of imagination taken down forever. This cessation coincides with mounting archaeological evidence of intense warfare, shifting alliances, and critically, a series of severe multi-decade droughts. The societal contract that could marshal thousands to build temples to the gods fractured when those gods seemingly withheld the rains. The stone calendar simply stopped marking time. Even the mightiest empires were not immune. The Romans left behind quarries with blocks only partly separated from the bedrock, and ambitious provincial building projects that were scaled back or abandoned as the empire's borders tightened and its economy strained. The message in these abandoned stones is not one of a single catastrophic event, but often of a slow unraveling, a dwindling of the collective energy required to finish what was started with such confidence. Reading these incomplete chapters forces us to confront a humbling counterpoint to our narrative of perpetual ascent. It reveals that the ability to work stone on a monumental scale is a delicate balance, a high-wire act requiring stable climate, consistent surplus, unified purpose, and lasting peace. When one of those pillars trembles, the ambition captured in stone is often the first casualty. The unfinished block, therefore, is not a failure of engineering, but a fossilized moment of historical change. It asks us to look beyond the glorious achievements that survived, to listen to the echoes of what was almost built, and to recognize that the end of a civilization's story is often written not in the monuments it completed, but in the stones it was forced to leave behind. A soft, red laser line glides silently across the weathered cheek of a pharaoh's statue, capturing every crack and contour with a precision the human hand could never achieve. This is the quiet hum of 21st century archaeology, a revolution in perception that is transforming our relationship with the monumental past. We are no longer limited to measuring tapes and sketches. We can now capture reality itself in clouds of billions of data points, creating perfect digital twins of structures that have stood for millennia. This technological leap is opening chapters in our story we never knew existed. From the dense jungles of Central America, a technology called LiDAR, light detection and ranging, is literally peeling back the canopy. Mounted on aircraft, it fires millions of laser pulses toward the ground. By measuring how long each pulse takes to return, it builds a breathtakingly detailed three-dimensional map of the terrain below, filtering out the trees to reveal the ghostly footprints of ancient cities, road networks, and ceremonial complexes lost for centuries. What once required a lifetime of dangerous, ground-level exploration can now be surveyed in a matter of days, rewriting our maps of entire civilizations. Back in the lab or even on a smartphone, another tool is democratizing this new vision. Photogrammetry uses hundreds of overlapping photographs of an object or site, stitching them together with sophisticated software to create interactive, navigable three-dimensional models. A researcher in London can now zoom in to examine the tool marks on a Mayan lintel stored in a Mexican museum, studying the angle and depth of each chisel stroke to understand the artisan's technique. A structural engineer can run simulations on a digital model of a Roman aqueduct, testing how different conservation materials will interact with the ancient stone over time. This is more than preservation, it is a new form of analysis. We can now detect erosion patterns invisible to the naked eye, or use computational analysis to virtually reassemble a scattered frieze, testing fragment alignments without ever physically touching the precious originals. Perhaps the most profound impact of this digital shift is the radical expansion of access. For most of history, to experience a monument required a difficult, often expensive pilgrimage. Now, anyone with an internet connection can take a virtual walk through the tomb of Nefertari in Egypt, examining its vibrant paintings in stunning detail without risking damage to the fragile pigments. Students in classrooms across the globe can manipulate a 3D model of Stonehenge, testing theories of astronomical alignment from their desks. This digital realm creates a new kind of permanence. While physical stone will inevitably weather, fade, or face the risk of loss through conflict or natural disaster, its exact likeness can now be preserved indefinitely in the cloud, a backup copy of our collective heritage. This represents a fundamental new chapter in the long dialogue between civilization and stone. The physical evolution of these monuments, their construction and weathering may have paused. But their informational life, their capacity to be studied, shared, and understood, is now expanding at an exponential rate. We are no longer just observers of these stone sentences. We are beginning to digitize their very grammar, preserving not just the object, but the immense data of its existence for future generations to interrogate with tools we cannot yet imagine. The monument endures, but its story is now told in a brilliant new light. The silent gaze of the Buddhas of Bamiyan was erased in a cloud of dust and thunder. In 2001, the world watched as dynamite and artillery systematically demolished two monumental statues that had stood in their Afghan cliff for 15 centuries. This was not collateral damage from a battle, but a deliberate ideological erasure, a stark and chilling reminder that in our modern age, the ancient language of stone is not just vulnerable to time, but to targeted violence. The evolution of monumental stonework has entered a perilous new chapter, where these testaments to human history are caught in the crossfire of contemporary conflicts, becoming pawns in political struggles and victims of a world they were built to outlast. This modern battle for preservation forces us to confront a difficult truth. The survival of these stones is now a direct reflection of our own global civilization's values and fractures. The threats are multifaceted and relentless. In active war zones, ancient cities like Palmyra in Syria and mosques in Yemen have suffered catastrophic damage, not just from stray shells, but from intentional destruction used to sever a people's connection to their past. Beyond the battlefield, a slower, more insidious assault continues. Looting for the illicit antiquities trade robs sites of their context and their story, turning archaeological pages into scattered, anonymous trophies. Acid rain and industrial pollution silently eat away at the marble of the Parthenon and the limestone of medieval cathedrals, a chemical weathering that no ancient engineer could have anticipated. Even our admiration poses a risk as unsustainable tourism, with its physical wear and tear, threatens to love these fragile sites to death. In response, a global network of conservators and organizations like UNESCO has mobilized, treating cultural heritage as a non-renewable resource of human memory. International conventions now formally recognize the destruction of cultural property as a war crime, attempting to build a legal framework for protection where diplomacy fails. Technology has become a crucial shield, with satellite imagery and drone surveillance monitoring vulnerable sites from orbit, documenting damage in real time and providing evidence for accountability. Digital preservation, through the 3D scanning we discussed, now also serves as a form of emergency backup, creating immutable records of a monument's state should the physical one be lost. This effort raises profound ethical questions that echo back through our entire journey. When a monument is damaged, what is our responsibility? The debate between restoration and preservation is intense. Should we rebuild, as was done with the historic bridge in Mostar, using original techniques and materials to heal a community's symbolic wound? Or should we let the ruins stand as ruins, as at the Roman Forum, honest witnesses to the passage of time and conflict, their broken stones serving as their own powerful memorial? There is no single answer, only the recognition that our intervention itself becomes a new layer in the monument's biography, a statement about how our era chooses to engage with the legacy of those before us. The destruction at Bamiyan, therefore, was not just a loss of art, it was an attack on a shared human timeline. It proved that stone, for all its permanence, is tragically fragile in the face of ideological fervor. This ongoing struggle adds an urgent, contemporary layer to our understanding. The story of monumental stonework is not a closed book of past achievements, it is a living narrative. Its continued existence, its careful study, or its tragic loss, is now a pressing measure of our own global civilization's commitment to dialogue over destruction, to stewardship over short-term gain, and to the profound idea that these stones do not belong to one nation or one faith, but to the collective memory of humanity itself. The question they pose to us is no longer just how they were built, but whether we are worthy of being their guardians. A single, smooth curve in a granite block can rewrite the story of its creation. Within the grand chambers of the Great Pyramid, far from the desert sun, lie stones of such exacting flatness and seamless joins that they seem to whisper of a forgotten chapter in our technological history. This is the theoretical frontier, where the clean narrative of mainstream archaeology meets the compelling, often controversial, questions posed by anomalies in the stone itself. It is a space of healthy tension where established models are stress-tested by details that do not fit neatly into our timelines, pushing us to reconsider the limits of ancient knowledge. The core of the debate often centers on material and method. Egyptology provides a well-documented framework for how hard stones like granite and diorite were worked. The consensus describes a process of immense patience, using copper saws and drills fed with an abrasive slurry of quartz sand, and meticulous polishing with progressively finer grits. This explanation is supported by tool marks found at quarries and unfinished objects, and it aligns with the artifacts we have recovered. Yet, when we stand before the granite coffer in the king's chamber, a single block hollowed out with corners of astonishing precision, some observers question whether sand and copper alone, over any amount of time, could achieve such a result on such a scale. From this point of inquiry, alternative hypotheses emerge, not from a place of dismissal, but from a drive to explain the physical evidence as we see it. One line of thought explores the possibility of a lost or overlooked casting technique. Could some of the limestone blocks, particularly those with unusual fossil patterns or consistency, have been geopolymer, a form of reconstituted stone cast in place rather than quarried? Proponents point to chemical analyses suggesting variations in composition, while mainstream geology often attributes these to natural variations in the sedimentary layers. The debate is technical, revolving around the interpretation of mineralogical data. Another captivating idea, often discussed in relation to the mind-bending stonework at Pumapunku in Bolivia, involves the use of sound or vibration. The theory suggests that certain resonant frequencies could have been used to soften or levitate stone, making precise shaping and movement possible. While there is no direct archaeological evidence for such technology, the concept taps into a universal human fascination with lost sciences and the potential for harmonic principles to manipulate matter. It is crucial to navigate this frontier with a clear distinction. On one side is evidence-based revisionism, where new data from geology, chemistry, or engineering prompts a legitimate re-examination of old assumptions. This is how science progresses. On the other is pure speculation, which, while imaginative, often operates without the anchor of reproducible evidence or peer-reviewed scrutiny. The enduring power of these mysteries lies not in proving one side definitively right, but in what the conversation itself reveals. These puzzles force mainstream archaeology to articulate its findings with greater clarity and to continue investigating the gaps. They remind us that our historical models are not infallible scriptures, but the best current interpretations based on the evidence at hand. New discoveries constantly refine them. This intellectual friction is ultimately productive. It ensures that the study of monumental stonework remains a dynamic, living field, resistant to dogma. It acknowledges that the past may hold nuances of technique and understanding that we have not yet fully recovered. The true lesson from this frontier is not about finding a single secret, but about embracing the humility of ongoing inquiry. After all, if our modern civilization vanished, how much of our own advanced knowledge would be perfectly obvious to future archaeologists from the objects we left behind? The entire history of human ambition can be plotted on a single, durable axis, a timeline written not in ink, but in quarried rock. If we pull back now for a panoramic view, mentally overlaying the evolution from Göbekli Tepe's rough pillars to the glass spires of our modern cities, a profound pattern comes into focus. The technical and stylistic journey of monumental stonework provides us with a remarkably consistent, physical proxy for tracking the very heartbeat of civilization. It is a unified theory written in granite and marble, a way to measure a society's social complexity, its technological innovation, its economic surplus, its political centralization, and its deepest ideological dreams, all through the stone it chose to command. Think of it as a grand, global timeline where the material itself becomes the data. The progression from communal megaliths to state-directed pyramids to imperial arches and finally to celestial cathedrals mirrors humanity's own journey from scattered tribe to unified kingdom to sprawling empire to the complex nation-state. Each phase represents that society's unique, monumental answer to the same universal human questions. Who are we? What do we believe? Who holds power? And how will we be remembered? The stone is their lasting reply. This timeline is beautifully tangible. While texts can burn, oral traditions can fade, and art can decay, a 100-ton block of granite remains a stubborn fact. It allows us to read a civilization's peak not solely through the fragile words of its poets or the biased accounts of its victors, but through the sheer, undeniable scale of its most enduring physical achievements. We can see the economic engine in the logistics of the quarry, the political structure in the organization of the workforce, and the spiritual worldview in the alignment of the temple. Of course, this stone record is not a perfectly linear, upward march. History is not that simple. There are regressions where techniques are forgotten after a collapse. There are fascinating parallel developments, like the simultaneous but distinct mastery of the Inca and the Egyptians, answering similar challenges in entirely different dialects of stone. And there are rich cultural variations, where local geology and belief twist the universal impulse into unique forms, from the rock-cut temples of India to the cliff dwellings of the American Southwest. These variations are not exceptions to the rule. They are the rule's rich texture, proving that the drive to monumentalize is a constant, while the expression of it is wonderfully diverse. This durable record gives us a stable benchmark. When we uncover a new site, we can place its stonework on this timeline and instantly begin asking sharper questions. Does the precision of the joints suggest a specialized, permanent class of artisans that implies social stratification? Does the scale of material moved require a vast, coordinated labor force? That points to strong central authority. Does the design incorporate precise astronomical alignments that reveals a sophisticated priestly class and a cosmology tied to the heavens? The stone becomes a diagnostic tool, a starting point from which we can reconstruct the living, breathing society that left it behind. It prepares us for a final, reflective look at our own place in this immense story. We have traced the language from its first, tentative words in the Neolithic to its complex, global literature today. We stand now at the end of this particular timeline, in an age where our most defining structures are often sheaths of glass hung on skeletons of steel. So where does that leave the ancient, foundational dialogue with stone? Has the conversation ended, or has it simply changed into a new language altogether, one we are still learning how to read? Our journey across this vast timeline of stone reveals a simple, unifying truth. These structures are far more than ancient relics or tourist destinations. They are the ultimate biography of our species, a collective memoir written in the enduring language of mass, geometry, and sheer will. From the first communal effort to raise a standing stone to the laser scans that now preserve its every contour, we have traced a direct line through human ambition. We have seen how the rise of every great civilization is inextricably linked to its ability to dream in stone, to organize thousands toward a single vision, to innovate with the tools at hand, and to encode its deepest fears, faiths, and hopes directly into the living landscape. This evolution is our story. It is a record of social triumph, of breathtaking ingenuity, but also of sobering fragility. The unfinished block and the abandoned quarry speak as eloquently as the polished temple, reminding us that these achievements were always balanced on a knife's edge of stability, surplus, and shared belief. The key takeaway from this exploration is a powerful new lens for understanding our shared past. By learning to read the stone, we gain access to the unvarnished ledger of a society's priorities. We see its economic engine in the quarry logistics, its political structure in the labor system, and its soul in the celestial alignment of its sacred spaces. This knowledge connects us across centuries and continents to the universal human drive to create meaning that outlasts the individual, to shout something essential into the silence of time. So let this journey change how you see the world around you. May you now look at the old stone bridge in your city, the granite bank facade downtown, or the humble fieldstone wall in the countryside not just as parts of the scenery, but as active sentences in humanity's grand, ongoing story. Each one is a chapter about the people who placed it there, a testament to what they valued enough to make permanent. We would love to hear which monument's story resonated most deeply with you. Was it the communal mystery of Stonehenge, the divine precision of the pyramids, or the resilient harmony of an Inca wall? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue this conversation. If you found this tracing of civilization through its stonework compelling, please subscribe. We have many more deep dives into the wonders and mysteries of our shared past waiting for you. Thank you for watching.